The Timeless Kitchen. Chapter 1. The Burnt Rosemary. Lucien Marlowe was a man who lived by his senses. His eyes had memorized the delicate shimmer of clarified butter. His ears knew the faint hiss that meant garlic was perfectly sautéing, not burning. But it was his nose that had always guided him best. That night, long after his staff had left, it was his nose that betrayed him. The restaurant was silent but for the distant hum of refrigeration. Lucien stood at the sink, sleeves rolled, washing the last copper pan, when a scent unfurled through the kitchen. At first faint, then sharper, rosemary. But not the kind he used. This smelled charred, like branches thrown on a fire. He frowned. He had cooked no rosemary tonight. He followed it past the walk-in fridge, past racks of knives gleaming like soldiers, until he reached the pantry door. His hand lingered on the knob, heart tapping faster. When he opened it, there were no shelves of flour or jars of lentils. Instead, a corridor stretched forward, filled with rolling mist. Light shifted across its tiled floor, shimmering gold, silver, red, like reflections from fires unseen. Lucien stepped back. "Am I dreaming?" he muttered. But the scent pulled him forward, warm and ancient. He crossed the threshold. The door closed behind him with a soft sigh. The corridor seemed to breathe, carrying him forward. The smoke thickened, tinged now with honey and bread. His pulse quickened. This was not a dream. This was a kitchen older than his own. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to subscribe to my channel so you won't miss more eerie and fascinating tales. Chapter 2. Bread of Rome. The mist cleared, and he stood in chaos. Men shouted in Latin, sweat dripping as they kneaded vast mounds of dough. Fires roared inside clay ovens shaped like domes. The air was thick with flour, sweet with honey, tangy with ferment. Lucien staggered, nearly bowled over by a boy carrying a basket of flatbreads. "Stranger!" A broad-shouldered baker fixed him with a suspicious glare. His Latin was fast, but Lucien caught enough. "Who are you?" Lucien stammered. "A cook." From far away. Laughter erupted. "A cook who wears silk shoes and soft hands. Bah!" The baker turned away. Something flared in Lucien's chest. Pride, challenge. He stepped forward, seized a lump of dough, and set it on the table. His hands moved without thinking. Fold, press, stretch, turn. The French method, taught to him by his grandmother, refined by years of work. The other bakers paused. The dough under Lucien's fingers transformed, smooth, elastic, alive. The broad-shouldered man's eyes widened. "Show me again." Hours passed. Lucien taught, but he also learned. The Romans baked with honey, lard, herbs baked into the crust. Their bread was heavier, heartier, meant to feed armies. At last, they pulled flatbreads from the oven. One was pressed into his hands. "Eat." He bit in. The bread was rough but rich, the honey glowing against the earthy grain. As he chewed, Lucien felt history itself on his tongue. This, he thought, is where bread began its march across the world. When the corridor opened again, he carried the flavor with him like a relic. Chapter 3. The Viking Smokehouse. Snow slapped him across the face. He stumbled into a long house reeking of smoke, sweat, and pine resin. Warriors crowded benches, tearing into slabs of fish, their beards glistening with oil. A woman taller than Lucien thrust a piece into his hand. "Eat," she barked. He obeyed. The salmon was smoky, sharp with resin, chewy but rich. Unlike anything he had ever known. They watched him. When he smiled, the hall erupted with laughter. He studied their method. Fish slathered in resin, hung above the fire until smoke curled into its flesh. Ingenious preservation in a frozen world. When the woman offered him a knife, Lucien shaved off lemon zest from the pouch he always carried, scattering it over the fish. The warriors tasted, eyes widened. A roar of approval shook the beams. "Skål," they shouted, raising mead. Lucien lifted his cup, warmth blooming through him. In that smoky hall, he was no longer an outsider but a brother at the table. Chapter 4. A Banquet in Chang'an. Mist parted to reveal lantern light and the hum of conversation. He stood in a Song Dynasty tea house, its wooden beams lacquered, its tables crowded with scholars sipping steaming broth. A chef beckoned him behind the counter. "You, foreign face. Try." Lucien lifted the porcelain spoon. The broth was rich, herbal, layered with flavors that healed as much as they fed. Ginseng, licorice root, ginger. Medicine, the chef explained. Every dish must balance the body. Lucien bowed. He offered his skill in return, showing how to julienne vegetables with knife precision. The chef's brows rose in approval. "Balance," the man repeated, guiding Lucien's hand toward a pot. "Not only taste, spirit." Lucien carried that lesson into his heart. Food was no longer only indulgence, it was health, harmony, wholeness. When the corridor opened again, the steam of the tea-house clung to his skin. Chapter 5: The Bitter Gift of the Maya. Jungle heat pressed against him, thick and wet. He stood before a Mayan temple where priests poured liquid from vessel to vessel until it frothed. They handed him a cup. "Drink." Lucien hesitated. The liquid was dark, bitter, unsweetened. He sipped, and the world tilted. Stars spun overhead. Snakes slithered across the sky. The fire within him roared. "Sacred," the priest said solemnly. "Cacao is the food of kings and gods." Lucien bowed his head. He understood. This was chocolate before sugar, before milk, before Europe claimed it. Bitter, divine, alive. He left with the taste still clinging to his tongue like prophecy. Chapter 6: Feast of Pharaohs. Golden light washed across sandstone walls. He was in Egypt, seated at a feast where musicians played lyres and servants carried trays piled with roasted goose, beer, honey cakes, and coarse loaves of emmer bread. "Bread for man," a scribe explained beside him. "Beer for the gods. Honey for eternity." Lucien joined the bakers, plunging his hands into dough thick with ancient grain. The bread was dense, heavy, but nourishing. That night, under the endless desert stars, he realized something deeper. Food was not only survival. It was devotion, offering, eternity itself. He felt smaller and larger than ever before. Chapter 7: The Fire of the Nomads. The thunder of hooves shook the earth. He crouched by Mongolian horsemen, watching them heat iron shields in the fire, then press raw meat between them until it sizzled. He gasped as the meat cooked in minutes, seared with perfection. They laughed at his astonishment. "Fast food," one joked in broken tongue. Lucien shared his own knowledge, sprinkling herbs at the last second. When the flavors bloomed in the smoke, the warriors shouted approval. That night, by their campfire, he began a journal. He wrote not only recipes, but reflections. "I am not stealing. I am receiving. Each dish is a gift, a memory carried forward." Chapter 8: The Corridor Narrows. Back in Paris, his restaurant became legend. Patrons wept as they ate, unable to name why the food stirred them so deeply. Critics called his flavors haunting and timeless. But the corridor changed. It narrowed. The mist grew darker. One night in Rome, he lingered too long. The corridor began to close, its edges folding like paper. He threw himself through at the last instant, clutching a laurel sprig. Back in Paris, the sprig withered in seconds. Fear gnawed at him. Time was warning him, borrow, but do not steal. Do not overstay. Chapter 9: The First Flame. One final pull dragged him deeper than ever. The corridor spat him into darkness. Around him, a small band of humans crouched by the first fire. Sparks leapt. Smoke curled. They roasted roots and scraps of meat, their eyes wide with awe. A woman offered him a charred root. He bit into it. The taste was harsh, raw, yet comforting. Tears filled his eyes. This was the beginning. Not art, not cuisine, just survival transmuted into warmth, into sharing. He felt the entire arc of humanity stretch forward from that fire to his Parisian kitchen. Chapter 10: The Eternal Recipe. Lucien returned, journal brimming. He cooked like a man possessed. Roman honey, Viking smoke, Chinese balance, Mayan cacao, Egyptian bread, Mongolian sear, the raw fire of prehistory. Diners described his dishes as tasting like memory itself. Some laughed, some wept. All left changed. Reporters asked, What is your secret? Lucien smiled. Time. But he knew it was more. He was no longer just a chef. He was a custodian of stories told in flavor, a bridge across centuries. And though the corridor lay quiet, he still smelled it sometimes, in the faint wisp of smoke, in the sweetness of honey, in the bitterness of chocolate. It whispered to him, there are more recipes waiting. And Lucien knew he would follow.